Hello, and welcome for the open house of AP Physics 1 exam preparation. My name is Dr. Kuchina. I will be your teacher in this preparation journey, and I'm well prepared to teach you physics. My first course in physics was taken when I was 10 or 11 years old. And since then, I piled up a lot of courses, a lot of research projects, and opportunities in my biography. I used to be a research associate at the Jefferson Lab, and I decided to switch to teaching. And I honestly think that there is no better profession than being a teacher. I love my students and love teaching physics because physics is like adventure. When you start solving a problem, you never know what kind of mystery you will uncover. So, uh, and we will bring with us our tools like math and physics principle to resolve any mysteries, to answer any questions that will come our way. AP Physics 1 is one of the exams that used to have a good scores, but lately considered to be one of the hardest tests because the success rate is not very high. For example, in 2021, only 42 students who took the exam passed it, and only 7% got the highest score, 5. So it shows that it's a very challenging course. And that's why you're here. You want to conquer that. You want to get a high score, right? So we will be meeting for 12 weeks, 2 hours apiece. And what I want you to be prepared is to refresh your knowledge of a particular topic before coming to class. Be prepared to start solving problems and competing with originality of your solutions. We will be solving problems in class. Maybe a 5-10 minutes lecture will be given to you, but we are not really dedicating any time to lecture. It will be problem solving mostly. Typical exam consists of 2 parts. One part is multiple choice questions, and another part is free response questions. We will do both. And not only in class, but also at home, you will be assigned several questions of multiple choice type, and there will be always at least one free response question that will not earn you any points, but I will look at them and we will discuss it on the next class. So every time that you have your homework, the next class will start with discussing problems that were most difficult, if any, and free response questions. Please always, if you find some problems in homework difficult, or you feel that we didn't cover it in our refresher in the class, please feel free to write down your questions. You can email them to me, or you can ask them, that's preferred method, ask them in the class. And the reason I want you to ask these questions in the class is because many other students may be asking the same question, but it's not quite formulated in their head yet. So you're helping not just clear up the material for yourself, but you're helping your peers to better understand the topic. So the scary table here shows results of the most recent test and score distribution. And you see that last year, grade 5 was received by 10% of students, which is wonderful, right? Yet you see that if you add up all the scores, it's still not 100% passing score. And as a exam grader, I will tell you my opinion of what brings students down, what kind of mistakes, typical mistakes students make to get points deducted and their overall score sinking down. So in each chapter, in each unit that we will talk about, I will specify where to bring your attention to. Doesn't mean that you have to repeat these mistakes, but I want you to be observant as we solve the problems. Where do you often make mistakes? What do you most often skip? You know, sometimes there are certain steps in the problem, right? And we will go over them over and over again with every problem that we solve. And say maybe in calculations, you forget to use your units as a check-in point. I want you to be aware of that. And when you have time at the end of the exam and you don't know where to put your time, go back and check your unit. Just be aware of what troubles you and work on it. So that's the best way to conquer any kind of challenge. The structure of the exam is revised every 3-5 years, and it is being revised to the better this year again. You will have multiple choice questions, and you will have very certain types of free response questions. And you see these questions in the red box. So one of the questions will be about experimental design. So when we first meet with you next week, I would like to learn from you how much of experimental experience do you get in your school, or did you get in your school related to the physics. We will be solving this type of problems and discussing it, and it helps tremendously if you really touch the equipment, use the equipment. Experience is, you know, much better than just theoretical knowledge. Then it will be qualitative, quantitative translation, and that's basically reading math or translating wording into formula. So we will do this type of questions as well. We will do paragraph argument and short answers. So again, we will do all types of problems, and we will observe ourselves and our friends helping each other, maybe competing, but competing on a good foundation, you know, bringing each other up, supporting each other, so we can all feel accomplished in this class. So the exam itself is on Friday, May 17th, and this course will be done about 3 weeks prior to that. Please be very active learners, and try ask as many questions as you can possibly think of. Without questions, I would assume what you don't know, and sometimes it will mean that I will give you information that you've learned long ago and don't really need to waste time on that. In this class and in your school class, you have 7 units. These 7 units have certain distribution in the exam. So, for example, energy topics somehow will take from 20 to 28% of the questions. You will have rotational motion and linear momentum and kinematics somewhere between 12 and 18%. And I would say that rotational motion is one of the most difficult topics, and because it's towards the end of the year when your energy is kind of exhausted and you don't have much memory left in your head. You need desperately some rest from studying. But say 2 years ago, rotational motion was very heavily represented on the AP exam. We need to know everything despite the expected distribution. Oscillation or simple harmonic motion. You see that it could deduct 4 to 6% of your grade or your score, but realistically, that's most exciting topic in this chapter. And all other chapters are bringing you to experience these oscillations and to see how important they are. And if you select physics as your future career, you will see that oscillations are a fundamental processes that we experience almost in everything. So something that we sometimes take for stable state, in reality is oscillation. And each oscillation will be connected to energy, to motion, to forces that are acting during this motion, to the momentum. And sometimes it will be circular motion, and definitely torque and rotational motion will be important part of that. So it's like a summary of all the topics and very important. So we will pay evenly great attention to every single unit because it's important and it's interesting, very interesting to learn about. A few logistical slides. So to get to your class, say next Sunday, you will have to log into your Canvas shell and click on Join Your Class Live. So at the time, I will open the Zoom 5 minutes prior to the starting of class to let you in, to settle down, to maybe greet your peers, because you're coming from different places and you want to feel like you are in the same team. You're about to conquer difficult subject, right? So you will click on Join Your Class Live and it will bring you to this Zoom. I want to bring to your attention this highlighted in red information that you will have access to all this information long after your AP exam and the end of this course until end of July 2025. And you see that there is a table of several weeks, week 1 through 12, to get to the concrete model that you are about to refresh or to work on. So next week will be week 1. And in week 1, you will see a handout. So it will be a PowerPoint presentation that I'm using. And if we're solving any problems in this session, they will be solved and written in nice font. And then you will have access to the homework and our sessions. Sometimes if you feel that you want to repeat all these exercises, all the questions, you want to think through them again and again, you're welcome to rewatch the recording and see if you can remember the answers. But truly, memorizing the answer is the worst way of learning physics. You need to understand why this answer is correct. Because what I notice for my students, they recognize the first three words of the question and they don't even finish reading the question, but they already remember that they answered something similar and they readily express their answer. If they would read the question, they will see that despite the same situation, the question was totally different, and that will yield different answer, right? So don't be in a rush to read the question and rewatch the lecture if you want. In here, you see that Canvas invite links will be sent to you earlier next week, so you can start on Sunday fully equipped. And what I want you to bring to your first session is all the notes that you have from your class, especially from the beginning of the class. Our next session, our first session of the week, will be about vectors. So whatever you remember about vectors, whatever notes you took in class, please look through them, bring them to the class. Bring plenty of scratch paper so you can solve problems and share it with other students in the class. What also helps is ability to write on the screen. So if you have a touch screen and a pen, that will be fabulous because then you will be able to annotate and explain your solution to everyone right away. I don't have a touch screen. I have a regular laptop. So I have a tablet with a pen, and that's how I will be writing. It's much more efficient than using your mouse pad and writing with your finger. Believe me, I tried that. So if you can have this tool or touch screen or touch tablet, whatever works for you best, that will help you to be more actively engaged in the class. Okay, so each week you will have homework consisting of two parts. One part will be multiple choice questions. Sometimes it will be 10 questions, sometimes 15. Doesn't matter. You would expect to spend about 45 minutes on these questions. So it's not that you have to rush through them. You can rush through them the first time and then give it an extra time and see if you can, if you would change your answer. I know our first hint sometimes is right, and then we overthink and create wrong logic and answer incorrectly. Please write down the thinking process that brought you there. Again, understanding how you got to this answer is important for you because we want you to polish, to refine your ability to solve problems. And it is not possible to polish anything until you get a notice of rough spot. Once you see this rough spot, then you start polishing, okay? The second part of the homework, and that will be a separate assignment, will include free response questions. So multiple choice will be automatically graded and you will get your grade right there, right away. For the free response question, I will ask you to write it everything on paper. Again, put as much information that is relevant for solving this problem as possible. Read the question carefully. The most recent problems specifically name what needs to be included in the answer. Most of the points are deducted because student didn't read the instruction and never even tried to follow them. So please be aware of that. Pay attention to instructions and focus on what is asked. If you absolutely have no idea what is asked, then put whatever you know on the topic of the question. But truly, I think with practice that will be involved in this course, you will be automatically solving many, many problems. And we will pay attention to red flags or fingerprints of some questions that will steer us in the right direction, where the students typically assume one thing and do not catch a hint given in the problem. That would be our weekly exercise in this session. Do you have any questions right now? No questions. Again, during the session, if you have any questions, you can always raise your hand, and that will give me a hint that you're ready to ask questions. If you are shy to ask questions aloud, you can always type them in the chat. But please ask your questions as soon as they arise. Don't wait until you lost track of the thought just because you were thinking about something at the very beginning and you didn't know the answer. I'm here to answer these questions. Okay? When you study for something like that, for the test, practicing multiple questions is very important, and that's what we will be doing. But I want you to go another mile, extra mile, and solve as many questions as you will see in the textbook, and bring your questions in the next session if you found something confusing or not matching your expectations. So the more active you are, the better chance that you will pass this exam with flying colors. Again, I don't believe that the test is very difficult. It requires attention, and if you learn to pay attention to the problem, and if you refresh all the material for this exam, I think you will do great. I believe in you. One of the important preparation for the class is knowledge of math. And when we're talking about math, there are specific things that will be used, I would say, every single time we're solving problems. Most of the times. We will start with vectors, and trigonometry will be our best friend. And you will quickly see that SOHCAHTOA rule in trigonometry will be your better friend than the formulas from the textbook, because formula in the textbook will give you a certain case, while SOHCAHTOA will cover every possibility. So we will talk about that. We will talk about scientific notations and how to add. You need to remember how to add, subtract, multiply, divide numbers in scientific notation. Do I expect you to do it in your head? Well, it wouldn't hurt because it trains your brain, but realistically, please bring your calculator. You don't need a very fancy calculator, just basic scientific calculator, and some of them has exponents that allows you to write down scientific notation using engineering style with letter E, which means 10 to the power of. Think, if you have an equation, which equation means you have a bunch of different letters, right? Each letter stands for some quantity. And there are some mathematical operation and necessarily an equal sign. That's why it's equation. So if you have an equation, can you isolate a variable? Can you solve for this variable? If you have quadratic equation, I know in algebra class, you have to learn, I believe, four different methods of solving quadratic equation. And it's nice to have all four of them and be proficient in each single one of them. But the maybe not quite quickest one, but sure way of solving quadratic equation would be using quadratic formula. So looking at quadratic formula and knowing what number to enter for which variable in the formula, in the quadratic formula, is very important. Now, as I mentioned once, there are several ways of checking your work, and you don't want to wait until the grades are posted in the middle of July, announced to you. You want to be sure that you did your best work while you take an exam. And there are several methods that we will be discussing in this session of how to check your work. And units would be one of them. If you're friendly with units, units will be friendly with you. Sometimes some information will come to you in meters and time in seconds, but the speed of the object will be given in kilometers per hour. If you disregard units, you will automatically get incorrect answer. So what's the hint? How can you get the correct answer? Well, basically, bring all the units to the same fundamental units, all the kilometers to meters. If everything is in feet, keep it all feet, select the units that you will use, or read the problem that will specify what they want you to use for units, and stick to these units. That means that sometimes you will need to convert them. How would you convert meters per second to kilometers per hour? Do you remember that? You will need to refresh so you can feel comfortable going back and forth between these two units. And also, you will need a basic geometry. Say, what is the perimeter of the circle? What is circumference? Do you know how it depends on radius? What is the area of the circle? What is the volume of the cylinder? What is the volume of the sphere? What is the volume of the cube? All these shapes are standard shapes, and we don't have time in physics to refresh this knowledge. So when we will be in session and we will need the volume or area of some geometrical shape, I want you to be ready to answer this question. So when you come to this session, please have all these helpful formulas ready. Even if you don't have it right now memorized, if you have them in front of you all the time, looking at them as you prepare for the class, during your homework, I bet you will memorize them because you're using them, because they are important. And another thing that helps is when you start your problem solving, you start not with numbers, not with punching your numbers right away in the formula, but starting with a general formula, formulating the physical principle that you learned. And from that, identifying what of these values that are in the formulas, what of values that are given to you in the problem? What are your target variables? What do you need to find? Do you have enough information? Can you decipher the text of the problem to learn this information? So please look at these topics. And again, once it arises in the class, we will go over that again and again. Don't be shy. If you forgot how to do any of this, ask question, and I will be happy to answer. A lot of work, at least one of the questions in the guaranteed in the exam will be about graphs, reading graphs, understanding graphs, describing graphs. You will have linear graphs, quadratic graphs, and I don't remember logarithmic graphs, but quadratic and linear are most popular graphs. So you will need to know how to plot the graph and how to define the equation of the line graph to express it as mathematical equation. How to solve linear equation. To solve linear equation, we will have to do operations on both sides of the equations, and we can do whatever we want to do as long as we do the same thing on the right side and the same thing on the left side. So both operations should be done, to both sides of the equation, okay? So, for example, if I want to solve an equation, let's see, let me write it here. If I have formula U equals MC times T minus T, right? And I want to solve for this letter, for T capital. How would I solve it? We want to concentrate on this variable, and this variable is in parentheses, right? So let's single out this parentheses. How would I do that? By dividing both sides by the factor that stands in front of it, right? On the left side, I will have an expression Q over MC. On the right side, MC and MC will cancel. So if I rewrite it, I will have Q over MC equals T minus small t, right? And again, I'm focusing on this one. How would I single out this variable? By adding t to this side. But if I'm adding small t to this side, I need to add t to the other side. So my answer overall for the question will be Q over MC plus t. So that's linear equation. We know that it's linear equation because variable that we're solving for is to the first degree. It's not square, it's not a square root, not the sign of this. That's just a variable by itself. For quadratic equation, say if I have a formula, and all these formulas are from physics. So if I have formula something like x equals x naught plus v naught times t plus 1/2 acceleration times time square, and I need to solve for time. That's a quadratic equation, right? How would I solve it? I will move everything to one side, and I will write it in the order from higher exponent to the lower exponent. So the first term will be 1/2 a times t squared, right? That's this term. The linear term will be plus v naught t. And then the free term will be plus x naught minus x. And now, since I subtracted x, it's now equal to 0. So I move everything to one side, and I created something similar to quadratic equation, that is ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0, right? So I know that my a will be 1/2 of acceleration. My b will be v naught, and my c will be difference in position. Now I will use my quadratic formula, x1 and 2. Do you remember the formula? It's on the other slide, on the next slide. It's negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac and divided by 2a. Now, as I take each of the letters and replace it with the expression from the formula, so 2a will be 2 times 1/2 of acceleration. That will be acceleration, simple acceleration, right? In here, I will have negative b, that will be negative b naught. So I will take this one and write v naught. Oops, that's v naught. And in here, again, I will put v naught squared. And for AC, I will take 2a to replace with acceleration, and I will double with 2c, so 2, that's 2a, and my c component. And I will make sure that my fraction line is to the end and my square root line to the end. That also could be a reason for the points deduction. It should be very clear what's under the square root. And now if the quantities are given to you, you can substitute student quantities. If you work with formulas, if you solve for variables, you're in better shape to get a correct answer. Because if you do that by step, you will have to round your calculation, and that could bring you a little bit off the correct answer. And that wouldn't cause too much of deduction, but you just want to be very good at the work that you perform, and you want to be successful on the test. So in here, you see the mathematics involved, and I use this formula using capital letter. It is important and sometimes difficult for students to understand that capital A and small a are the same letters. They just represent some structure of the equation, and you will use whatever coefficient stands in front of x squared as a value of this variable, that variable A, B, or C. And you know that sometimes you may experience the negative determinant here, right? And that means that there are no solutions to this question. So that could happen, but you need to know what it means in physical world, in real world. For unit conversion, typically we use the conversion factor or facts. For example, if I have 1 hour, 1 hour is equal 60 minutes, and each minute is equal to 60 seconds. So look, I know that 1 hour is 60 minutes, but I can use then that it's 60 seconds in each minute as the factor. So I will cross out my minutes and my hour will be expressed in seconds. I will have to multiply 60 by 60 to get 3,600 seconds. So to multiply, to convert hours into seconds, you will have to multiply number of hours by 3,600. Kilograms, you have to, grams to kilograms, you will have to divide by 1,000. Why? If I have 100 grams, I know that I will need to convert into kilograms. So new unit will go in numerator and the old unit will stay in denominator to cancel out. And then I will use the conversion factor. 1 kilogram, I know will be 1,000 grams. That defines that for me to convert from grams to kilograms, I will have to divide my number by 1,000. So this fraction is set up to cancel old units and replace them with new units, and that helps you to correctly remember the operation you need to do. Miles to feet, you need to multiply by 5,280 because 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. So it's all about conversion factors. Again, if you rusty on these conversion factors, please create a space where you can collect all this information that will be very useful as we solve problems. And if you don't have all of them, we will add up to them. So leave some space for additional formulas. Maybe rewrite them more accurately. Rewriting them over and over again helps your brain to memorize the formula. And what's important, if your brain remembers the formula, you know exam provides you with formulas as well, right? Don't hesitate to check. The formulas should be there, and you should be able to go from that. Please make sure that you have this general table of formulas for your use in the session. We will refer to that in our preparation, because if you know where to get your resources, if you know where to get help, you will be more efficient during the exam. And next class, when we start with vectors, will be heavily involving basic trigonometry. Trigonometry is shorthand for solving right triangles. So we will be looking at a possibility to build a right triangle. And having a right angle is super important. Students sometimes take it for granted and all the triangles become right triangles. That's incorrect. Check that you have right angle. And if you have right angle, Then you have your rule of SOHCAHTOO. So whatever angle is given to you, if you need to find the opposite and the hypotenuse is given to you, then you will use sine of the angle because that involves opposite and hypotenuse. If you need adjacent side, sine would not help. For adjacent, cosine is more convenient because cosine is a ratio of adjacent side in the triangle, the side that touches this angle, to hypotenuse. So if hypotenuse is not even known, but you know the length of two legs, well, you can use tangent, right? Or if you want to just show your mastery in math, you can use Pythagorean theorem, find your hypotenuse, right? Using Pythagorean theorem, and then use sine or cosine. Those formulas are all included in trigonometry. So if you remember trigonometric identities, such as sine square of the angle plus cosine square of the angle equals 1, things like that. That's not absolutely necessary, but it does help tremendously. So typically, there is very little chance that it will play a role if you know this identity or not. But having the knowledge, the more knowledge you have, the better you come prepared for the test. So for you to find angle, once you set up your equation, you will have to use inverse functions. How do you do inverse functions? Certainly with your calculator. So please be ready to use calculator. To your next class, I want you to bring your notes about vectors, your ample of scratch paper, pencil, pen, tablet or touch screen, so you can write on the screen and participate in discussion. Formula from the previous AP exams or from the AP course that you took in school. And it will help very much if you will have a straight ruler with, triangle, whatever takes less space but allows to draw nicely lines, because we will be working with vectors. We will be drawing a lot. So prepare space, prepare your workspace, so we will have a very good, comfortable space to work with vectors. We will be talking about adding vectors, subtracting vectors in different ways, finding their components, using components in addition and subtraction, things like that. So everything that covers vectors, please take a look in the textbook, in your notes, and come to solve the problems. Let's play the game. Who can answer all the questions? And the goal of the game is not to answer all of them, but to think through all of them is very important. To sift through possible answers and find the one answer that best answers the question. So that's basically it. And I hope to see you in the class. I hope you are excited to take this course.